God of the Lord that Jabez asked for, that Jabez went to Israel to that you may bless me and abound my property, and your hand shall be with me, and to preserve me, keep me from evil, so that it may not languish me, and enlarge my territory. Because blessing in the Old Testament had more of a material concept of it, that the understanding of blessing, or they conceptualized blessing in the Old Testament, is fundamentally different than the understanding of blessing in the New Testament. Why? Because if the blessing of God, as we said last week, that God extends life, for example, why? Because in the Old Testament, everyone who's going to die was hellbound. So it wasn't exactly something to look forward to when you died, to go to hell. But in the New Testament it says that I wish to go and be with Christ, for this is much better. So the blessings abounded. So, but in the New Testament, a short life could be a blessing. So I'm just trying to make a distinction, even if though the blessing that Christ said that all of these things shall be conferred upon you. He didn't say that this will be, that one thing will be canceled and be get something instead. He says no, but all of these things will be added. So all these blessings will still be attained for as Christians. So that's why we find monks, for example, going into poverty by choice, that they choose to be poor, because the true richness is with the richness of Christ in his life. So therefore, a monk no longer seeks to be financially wealthy or to compile treasure, so to speak, just like the merchant who sold everything and attained the one precious thing, which is Christ himself. So this blessing is no longer in the same concept of the Old Testament, even though if it did not disappear, but it's no longer the one thing that people, the central thing that people attain to. And then you just say that the blessing of God is sufficient in Proverbs, that the blessing of the Lord is sufficient, and the Lord shall not put toil with it. Meaning what? Meaning that remember when I told you that I'll talk to you about toil or laboring, that is, I will speak to you, that through the sweat of your forehead you will work and you will not get the same blessing. But we say now that the blessing of the Lord abounds and that does not increase any toil with it. Meaning that those who have the blessing of God shall toil less and take more because he has the blessing of God. Okay. Then there are people who toil and earn, even if they're not Christian or even if they're far from God. Yet, I remember His Holiness Pope Shenouda had a very beautiful quote. That every Christian living in a blessing will attain that blessing. Yet, not everyone who took that blessing is a Christian and has that blessing from God, because he is just a Christian, or he's going with God or walking with God, because he applied himself and focused. And for someone who studied, for example, succeeded. So because although you do not worshiping me, should I fail you? No, but he succeeded because he studied. So every Christian should be successful, as we'll see. So a Christian person is usually successful, and we'll see what does that entail. So therefore, the blessing of God suffices and nothing abounds beyond it. Meaning that a reversal of what we read in Genesis, that through sin, man started to toil and labor and earn less in spite of the increased labor. We found now in the New Testament that someone would labor or toil lesser yet gains more, because God is with them. For the blessing of the Lord abounds and suffices, and there's nothing that exceeds it. That with blessing you do not need to toil more in order to make more. And we find in the Old Testament the Mount of Gerizim had blessings, and the other mountain of Abel had curses. In Deuteronomy 11:26 and 27, we read, "Look, behold, I place before you today, before you I place blessing and curse. Blessing if you hear the commandments of the Lord your God, of which you command you today, and a curse if you do not hear the commandments of the Lord your God, and you wander from the path that I have commanded you, that you may follow other gods that you have not known." So therefore, here, blessings and curses, they would stand in two groups on Mount Gerizim, and they would say the blessings that they would give to the person who observes the commands of God. And the other group would stand to the curses to those who basically unfollow the commandments of God or disobey. And believe me, I feel until this day, the Jews, because they memorized and kept the commandments of God, according to the Old Testament, they still have that blessing, that their numbers in the whole world is probably lesser than the population of the Copts. They're not even 20 million. Yet they're now controlling the whole world, because they have a blessing in their life and they're maintaining it, at least in their Old Testament conceptualization of it. That they keep the commandments of God. You find that the Orthodox, we are living amongst Jews, so I see how much. And they're very conservative. Friday afternoon, very observant, not a single one of them. Everyone, first of all, is going to their synagogue, walking, cold, heat, snow, rain. They don't care. They're walking to their synagogue to pray, which is equivalent to the Vespers that no one here attends. So we don't have that blessing. We barely drag ourselves to attend on Sunday, and some of us come immediately for communion. And I said to myself, there's no way they'll take communion. And I find them going right into the line for take communion. And this makes blessing in our life so scarce. Why? Because we do not observe these religious commands. It's barely attending on Saturday, and on Sunday, well, hit or miss. So therefore, the blessing of God in keeping His commandments is absent for us. And the blessing of God is also in the tithing, as God said. The only time in the Old Testament He said, "Test me," and it says, "Do not test the Lord your God." But He said, when did you say test me? In Malachi. He said, let's read Proverbs 13:29. Honor God out of your money and all of your cattle or livestock. So what would the result, so that your inventory would be filled up and you would abound? So the result or the consequence of God, of a person honoring God out of their money, that their inventory would be overflowing and filled, and his presses would be overflowing. And then in the book of Malachi, a very clear verse. As though God is telling man or humans, if you do not give me my right, therefore you are embezzling me, if you will. Sometimes human beings can be neglectful in their tithing, thinking that this is a simple matter, but God considered it an act of theft committed against him personally. Would a person steal from God? For you have embezzled me. And so people would say, why, how have you stolen with you? So he says, through the tithings and offerings. Then it reads that indeed you have been cursed and you are stealing from me this entire nation. That you are all stealing from me. In English, it reads, you have robbed me. A robber is a thief, a person who steals. Bring all of the tithe in the storage so there will be food in my home, and test me. Thus said the Lord of hosts, if I do not open to you the gateway, the heavens with an indescribable blessing. So here God is telling human beings that this is my right. Do not keep it for yourself, for this is not yours. This is mine. And yet, when you give it to me, I shall abound blessing upon you. Of course, we're not talking today about stories that are endless, but this is an experimental matter, or matter that comes out of applied experience, that human beings should try. How is it to tithe God and see what happens? I want to tell you something, because there's a going trend that I don't like to give the church. I like to give the brethren of the Lord. Well, the church helps the brethren of the Lord. That's one thing. Someone else say that I do not like to donate for buildings. Well, when you come to the church, don't you pray inside a piece of real estate building, or do you pray in the street? You don't want to donate to the building as you come in to pray into the building of the church. And where did that building of the church come from? It came from the offerings of people. Where else would we pray? And did this church, that said church, doesn't have service and expenses, who will carry those out and sustain those? For you, in order to understand this, and I'll speak to you about this, because there's a concept that has been spreading. The church that you attend is the church that you tithe, period. You can give above and beyond to other churches, but the church that serves you is more worthy of your tithing, because this is the church that serves you, because it says that this is the church. It says this is my church that you attend, you pray in it, that you serve in it, that you must have a service in it as a working member in this body, but you also serve. So everyone having a role to serve, and as the church you serve or you support financially. I must address this topic, Lord willing, at some point, because I find that this concept has become rendered weaker, and especially with the newer generation. Mom and dad don't have the idea of not knowing your left hand, know what your right hand is doing, to be given in secret. But you should also teach your kids at the same time, because the kids grow up oblivious to this concept of tithing, and they probably could end up earning more than their parents, but they don't give, or they don't tithe. So this concept has to be very clear in our lives, that this is the right of God, in order for the church to be sustained and continue to serve God. There's something called the blessing of tithing. This is a blessing that God placed, a condition to give me the tithe and try me. In the New Testament, he said that all of this shall be extended to you. He said there's an added thing. What is it? Which is the spiritual element. In the Old Testament, God, in order to show that He's with the people, he had to give him kids, to give him a lot of kids, or to give him the blessing of having a lot of money, a lot of land, a lot of property, a blessing that to protect them from their enemies if they go into war, for example, because these were the indicators of God being in their life. But in the New Testament, what does it say? In Ephesians verse 3, of Ephesians 1:3, blessed God, the Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who blessed us with every spiritual heavenly blessing in Christ. So the blessing is every spiritual blessing in Christ. This is what blessing is in the New Testament. So it's a spiritual blessing. It's not material things that we just chase. So if you're still chasing these material things that we mentioned, so you're still living in an Old Testament mindset. So I want you now to evolve and enter into the New Testament in your understanding of the New Testament, to have a spiritual blessing. A person now, as it is written in the Old Testament, in Proverbs 30, verses 8 and 9, this idea of give us this day our daily bread. The New Testament, we say, give us this day our daily bread. So it doesn't have to have a surplus. It's to just give us the needed ration of days. So those who have clothing and sustainability. So the proverb says, do not give me poverty or richness. Do not give me poverty or wealth. Why? Give me the bread of my day.
The food allotted to me.
It means the food allotted to me, as the verse says, so, which is the daily bread in the sense. Lest that I be filled and disbelieve you or deny you and say, who is God? That's why he said that it's very difficult for people who have wealth to enter the heaven, because they depend on their money. Lest I deny you and say, who is God? Or question, who is God? And the opposite is true. Lest I become poor and start stealing and take the name of God falsely. There's an Arabic idiom that says hunger is godless, or hunger is heathen. So I don't want to feel that I'm too rich and I depend only on money, nor I become too poor and I can't eat, would also have a reverse effect. Yet give me the bread of my sustenance. For having clothing and sustenance is important, or sufficient. That's why our teacher St. Paul the Apostle says in Ephesians 4:28 of the stealer, or of the thief, that a thief no longer steals. He's talking about the new person in Christ Jesus, that he no longer steals. Why? But rather he toils, doing good with his own hands, to have the ability to give those who are in need. So here he talks about someone who's a thief and who is going down the wrong path. So when he repents, what will that do? That he will no longer steal, but rather toils, works and toils. Didn't we say that one should toil? That meaning that stealing is the illegal resource, or the illegal money. But now you repented, so therefore you have to be straightforward before God, that he will work and toil and do good with his own hands. See any job, no matter what it is, to earn your bread, which is lawful or permissible. Why? Not just for the sake of them to eat, because the New Testament made the heart filled with love towards others. That's why he
ليكون له
says,
أن يعطي من
so
له
that he would have the
يعني
ability
حولني
to
من
give.
إنسان سارق المسيح بقى القائم من بين الأموات حولني من إنسان سارق إلى
To
إنسان
keep
مش
me
بس تائب لكن
to
كمان
become from
محب
a stealer
وبيشتغل
to a person who
بإيده
loves
ويكسب
and
مش
who
عشان يحسن
works
نفسه لكن كمان علشان
not just to win,
له احتياج
but to give those who are in need.
تورينا المسيحية في
And
عمقها
this gives us Christianity in its depth.
ديانة التغيير الحقيقي
That is the religion of true change.
التغيير
That Christianity is the true faith of change that changes someone,
تغير تغيير حقيقي من الداخل
makes someone truly change from the inside.
ويقدر ان هو
And they can, through that,
مهما
please
كان
God
يتعب عشان يرضي ربنا
no matter
ما
what,
يمثلش الحرام
to
ده
not
الموضوع الأول
go into illegal or abominable ways.
وهو
This is our first
موضوع
topic.
مهم
Going into the second topic,
النجاح
which is success.
موضوع النجاح ده بقى موضوع مهم
The topic
شوية
of success is important,
ويا ريتنا نفهمه
and I hope we can
في بعض
properly
الآيات
understand it.
مهمة
There are some verses that are important. Here's a verse that
كان
reads,
الرب مع يوسف
The Lord was with Joseph, and he was a successful man.
سر النجاح
So the secret of
وجود
success
الإنسان مع ربه
is for man to be with God.
بيقول
In the psalm, it reads, Psalm 1,
طوبى للرجل الذي لم يسلك في
Blessed is the man who didn't walk in the way path of the wicked,
مجلس المستهزئين
and did not sit in the counsel of the abominable, yet in the law of God is his joy, and in the laws of God he rejoices day and night. Those who are living with God, this is the first part, that you do not go in the way the path of the wicked or walk with the path of the sinners or anything.
في ناموس الرب مسرته في ناموس يلهج نهارا فيكون بقى ايه النتيجة يكون كشجرة
So,
مثمرة
what's the result?
ويكون كشجرة مغروسة عند مجاري المياه
It would be like a planted
التي
tree
تعطي ثمرها في حينه
that gives its in its due time,
أوانه وورقها لا يذبل وكل ما يصنعه
and everything he does succeeds.
تلاقي كده الإنسان ربنا بيبارك
You find
كل حاجة
someone
يعملها
saying
فيها بركة
that everything they do is a blessing.
طالما الإنسان ماشي مع ربنا
As long as someone is walking with God.
طب ايه تاني في الآيات
So what else
النجاح
in the verses of
يشوع 1 من 6 ل 8 يقول تشدد
Joshua 1 from 6
وتشدد
to 8? He says,
لأنك
Be
أنت
courageous,
تقسم لهذا الشعب الأرض التي حلفت
for you allot this
لآبائهم
land to the people that you swore to your fathers to give them.
تخيلوا بعد
Joshua, of course,
موسى النبي هذا
after
القائد
Moses,
العظيم
this great leader,
جه هو في الأول كده كان لسه إيه
in the beginning he was still,
مستكتر الحكاية
he thought that it was
وخايف.
too much and he was afraid.
صح دوت يقول له
So in
ربنا
this
تشدد
verse he
وتتراجع
says,
3 مرات
God,
علشان
God
يطمن
tells
إن هو
him
ربنا
to
يبقى
be
معاه.
strong and to be
معاك،
brave
ما
3
تخافش،
times so
تشدد
that God will
وتشجع.
be with him.
إنما كن متشددا وتشجع
But to be harsh and to be encouraged,
تحفظ للعمل حسب كل الشريعة التي أمرك بها موسى عبدي لا تمل عنها يمينا ولا شمالا
do not go from
لتفلح
it
حيثما تذهب
left or right so you could go wherever you want,
you may prosper
that you may
wherever you
prosper
go. Prosper يعني
wherever you
تنجح،
go.
تفلح. لا يبرح سفر هذه الشريعة من فمك
That this
كده يورينا
law should not part from your mouth.
ماشية مع إيه
This also shows us that with his law
لا يبرح
he
سفر هذه الشريعة من فمك
is rejoicing by day and night.
برضه تحفظ العمل حسب كل ما هو مكتوب فيه
That also is according to everything that you encounter,
حينئذ
because at that point you would be good,
طريقك
you would reform your way,
وحينئذ
and at that point you would be
you will
successful.
have good
You will
success.
have good success.
good success. طبعا احنا حافظين الآيات الثانية
Of course we know all the other verses we're familiar with,
اللي هي بتاعت إله السماء يعطينا
which
النجاح
is
ونحن عبيده
the Lord of heaven gives us success, and while we are servants, that success comes from God.
وربنا يقول
And God tells,
في رسالة القديس يوحنا الثالثة
and the third epistle of St. John, that the elder to Gaius, the beloved who I love, O beloved, I wish to see you successful and upright,
كما أن نفسك ناجح.
as your soul is successful. For I was very glad where many brethren came, and they attested to the truth that is in you, as you walk in truth. So I wish you to be prospering in all things, and be in health, just as your soul prospers. So he wants to tell him that I don't want you just to be successful, but your health is also well, and succeeding in everything. These are verses about success. The children of God always feel that God is the secret of their success. Anba David, may God rest his soul. I was a young youth in Canada, but remember, he said someone scored 87.5% in high school. This used to be a high thing. He said I scored 87.5%. But 85 of it was by the effort. But with God, I became 87.5. So God's share is 2.5%, but through his effort and his intelligence and everything, it became 85. Believe me, that's good for him, because a lot of people attain all 87.5% just to themselves. Do you feel that God is the source of your success? Do you feel that without him I could attain where I am? Of course, there are other factors, but do you feel that God is in your life? He is making you in your life successful? We'll see how. Let's see what we'll talk about. 3 points. Number one, the measures or the gauges or the indicators of success. Number two, types of success. Number three, conditions of success. Conditions of success. Let's start with number three, conditions of success. In order to be successful, I must. Number one, not to break the commandment of God. That's number one. So anything you'll be successful in, if you break the commandment of God in it, you consider yourself unsuccessful. Meaning what? Someone who cheated in an exam and scored what? Before society and before everyone else, he succeeded and scored whatever he scored. But before God, he failed. He's a zero. Why? Because he is a cheater. Someone who compiled a lot of money and fortune, yet with very illegal ways. So he appears to be successful, but he claims to be successful. But is it through legitimate ways, or did I break the commandment of God? We don't have the idea that the means justify the goal. So number one, for success according to the commandments of God. Number two, not to step on anyone to go against success. For in the name of success. I'll tell you a story of one of our kids who left his job. So what should I do? He said, I'll start a business. So he went to start a restaurant business. So he went and saw a restaurant. So he brought a friend who has experience. So he went and saw the place, and he kind of like felt greedy towards this. Is very nice. So he went and he increased the price of purchase and snatched it from his original friend. So that person was so saddened and disappointed that we do this to each other. Where is Christ in our life? So he felt very sad. So do not step on your brother. Do not usurp the right of your brother or your fellow person just to arrive. Number 3 in conditions is success, permanent success or consistent success. Not just in a place or with certain people, and with other places there's no success. Meaning, I'll tell you what I mean by number 3. So we'll go into the types of success so you understand. A person who succeeds and God is with will be always successful. And everything he does, he succeeds in. So this is what it means. When he was a student, he succeeded in his studies. When he graduates, he succeeds in his job. When he gets married, he's successful in his marriage. Successful houses, houses of purity, houses of prayer, houses of blessing. It's not a broken home. Successful in their relationships, inside and outside of the house. Sometimes people tell me, this person is an angel, but their wife would come and complain against them. So people are surprised. How could this person, that she says that about him? What's the result? That there are people who have, especially the narcissistic types of characters, that they could deceive people and be very nice and pleasant with everyone, but the truth of who they are appears at home when they take off the niceness mask that they wear to society, that they take off that mask and appear for who they really are at home. And when they go out, their voice is suddenly soft-spoken and gentle and nice. So am I the nice, calm, soft-spoken, successful type all the time? Or what? Or just with certain people? What is the nature of my relationships? Start at home. Fix things at home, because these are the true relationships that truly reveal the substance of a person, and then expand that circle. But to try to appear good on the outside and having an ugly reality back home behind closed doors is not right. So first thing is to remember my husband, first my wife, my home. To remember first, even St. Paul, it says that how he could please their husband, or how could they please their wife, that this is the priority. So you have everyone else say something nice about you, but he or she is upset from you, that doesn't work. So let's learn spiritual life properly. Okay, the last thing, the criteria. How do I gauge this success? Again, we'll go back to say, it's true that we're talking about the blessing of God, but we agree that the blessing of God, meaning it's a spiritual blessing, so we will not gauge success of how much money you compile, or how many homes, or how many businesses have you acquired, but success in life in general. And to be honest, how will we measure success? It's how you influence the people around you positively. What did you do for people around you? What did you do for them? If you want to expand it a little bit more, what have you done to the service of your fellow people in church, at church? And if you want to even go beyond that, what have you done for humanity? What have you benefited them for them? The people who invented things, who are successful, that had an impact in life, that they felt they had an impact and wanted to deliver something to benefit all of humanity. Come, let us place let's place criteria. And to be honest, this criteria I took from an English sermon. I heard that it's an English sermon all 7 criteria starts with the letter C, but we'll try to expand on that in Arabic. So the first thing, we'll call it charisma.
الكاريزما يعني ايه؟
What does charisma mean?
يعني عمل النعمة.
Meaning the work of grace.
لما تقول فلان ده
When you say that so-and-so is a charismatic human being or character, meaning that how much grace is in their life.
يعني مدى ظهور المسيح.
Meaning that how much of Christ is manifest in their lives. So when people see in me the icon of Christ or the image of Christ, without a doubt,
إنسان ناجح في حياته.
I will be a successful person in my life. Father Bishoy Kamel,
ريح نفسه.
of blessed
مرة
memory,
كان رايح بالقطر ومسافر.
one time was traveling by train.
ناس كتير أعداد
So many people,
رايحين يودعوه في المطار.
so many people were going to bid him farewell at
فواحدة أجنبية
the
بتقول
station.
ده مين ده؟ فأبونا لوقا
So a foreigner was saying, who's this? So Abuna Lua Cedros, who passed away recently, who's traveling with him. So she's telling those foreign woman, this is Father Bishoy Kamel. So she said, so who is this Abuna Bishoy Kamel?
كاهن.
He's like, well, he's a
طب والناس دي
priest.
كلها
She's like, so all these people why are they coming for this priest? She sees thousands of people. Very surprised.
بعد ما القطر مشي
So after the train departed, she told him, can I sit with him a little bit? So she sat with him for a few minutes and she came back and told him, to Abuna Lua that is, she said, now I know
why the people love him.
why the people love
دلوقتي
him.
يعني عرفت ليه الناس بتحبه.
Now I know why the people love him.
لأنه إنسان وديع ومتواضع.
Because he's a meek and humble-hearted and
مليان ببساطة.
love-filled
تشوفه أكنك
human
بتشوف
being. So when you see him, it's as though you see Christ.
أول مقياس
So the first indicator
هو
of
إن
success
الناس تشوف فيا
is the people to see in you the image of Christ.
أقول أي حاجة.
Don't speak, don't say anything. They see in me
أعمالكم الصالحة.
our good deeds.
يسمع كلامك ولا قال
So he didn't say your studies or your studies or your sermons or anything. Just by merely looking at you, that it's enough to see your face, Father.
يبقى إذن أول مقياس.
So therefore, the first indicator for success is the indicator of Christ in me. That's number one. Number two, they call it courage. What does courage mean?
الكارج اللي هو
Courage means
يبقى عندك إيمان بشيء
to have faith in something
وعايز تنجح فيه.
that you
رسالة
want to
معينة.
succeed in, that you have a certain
رسالة
message,
شاعر بيها.
a certain message that you feel, there's a certain passion
ربنا حطه في قلبك.
that God placed in your
بس
heart,
بشرط يكون
under the
حاجة
condition
كويسة.
that it'll be a nice thing. Number two,
اشتغل بحكمة.
that you work wisely. Two very important
ربنا
factors
حط في قلبك
that God placed in your heart,
شيء جميل
a beautiful message that's beneficial, and to work wisely. Because, of course, if it's not a beneficial matter from God, so you could tell God just to remove it. Or if you work unwisely, you could lose a lot and you'd not be successful and would have a reverse effect because you did not apply wisdom properly. So the challenge is how to apply something beneficially to benefit humanity and to think outside of the box. Instead of the liturgy having a rhythm or boredom or anything, we want to think of something else. So this is called courage, to be successful, to be distinguished. But this distinction should not make you go off. Someone who wants to, for example, give nice sermons but be filled with heresy, and it could be filled with anything, any sorts of heretical stuff, just because he wants to they want to get a few applause, just to say, to bring new sermon material that people have not heard before. But if it's false teaching, well, that's not gonna benefit. So you have to be careful in every word you say. That's number two. Number three, we'll call it communication. Communication is a talent with a human being that he could communicate. When it teaches us, when we were taught counseling, there's something called, we know the IQ, the intelligent quotient test, is how much intelligence, is how much social or emotional intelligence you have. That's how they, or your social quotient, but there's something called an emotional quotient. It's not just intellectual, but it's emotional intelligence. Like, for example, we had a teacher when we're studying at Holy Cross Seminary theology. A teacher who would stay for the 1 hour he's teaching, he would look like this, no eye contact for a full hour. And of course, he is a brilliant scholar that we cannot deny, and he has so much knowledge. But he doesn't have the capacity for eye contact. Anyone who wants to speak to somebody, wants to look to him, to have a sense of communication. But this lack of communication was very challenging. But someone who's very scholarly or very knowledgeable, but His Holiness Pope Shenouda was a genius in a sense that in his time, in his contemporary time, people came out and spoke in classic Arabic. He decided that I will go and speak with to the people with a language that they understood. So he was very much loved and popular because he had the depth and the simplicity to reach out to people. Why keep saying all of these fancy, complicated, classic Arabic rhetoric and people have no idea what I just said? Because people go out not knowing anything or not getting anything out of the sermon. That's why we find Jesus Christ would say that he looked upon them, for the young person, that he looked at him and loved him, that he looked at him, he made eye contact. And so there's a sort of communication, there's body language communication, nonverbal cues that speak more than words. All of these things are called communication. Simplicity, as we said, or to simplify things. So in order to be successful, I have to show that I'm not one of the philosophers that no one understands. No, you would lose people if you do that. But those who want to succeed have to understand how to communicate with others in order to be a successful human being. Number 4, commitment. If you took the commitment to be successful in something, no matter what happens, I will not leave him. Because every time something happens and I leave, I will never succeed. Real success is to continue to hold on to something that I am responsible for and to struggle with it faithfully with everything I have in order to make it succeed. If I accept to serve, if I accept service, I must make it succeed through the grace of God, through commitment, meaning faithfulness, meaning commitment, meaning that I don't quit. Meaning makes me feel that this responsibility is from God, not from anyone else. And if it's from God, I will never leave it, ever. No matter what. Number 5, consistency. So consistency is not changing. But every time we'll change something around. That's why Christ said, do not go from home to home. To have a consistency so it succeeds. This is the time that we pray. So it succeeds. But if today we'll pray on Saturday at 6 o'clock, next week at 4. After that, Friday at 7 p.m. So there's no consistency. People are confused. When is the meeting? But in order to succeed, you have to have a consistency. Consistency and follow-up on certain times. And that's why we must also, in these 2 points, as far as consistency, is to calculate the cost before I accept the matter or to proceed with it. Christ didn't tell you accept something and then think about it. He said no. He said think first before you proceed to something. And if you accept, then you have to continue. Because this calculation comes before. you proceed with the decision. And after that, through the grace of God, no matter what the obstacles are, the grace of God is important. That's why St. Paul, at the end of his life, was very successful. After he gotten very successful, that I have fought the good fight, that I've completed the race. Not that I decided to leave in the middle of the race, that I kept the faith. So what's the result? And now I have the crown or the laurel of righteous. Number 6, they call it competence. I remember a video on YouTube that I watched of Dr. Magdi Yaoub. He has a hospital in Aswan, which is now like astronomical numbers to build a hospital. So now he's making another one in Greater Cairo, in Giza area. So the interview is telling him what? He's saying the most important thing is excellency. When he came here in Abu Dawood's convention, he talked about the idea of excellency, or perfection, of quality. Says now the people from all over the world come to see the surgeries that are carried on in Dr. Magdi Yaoub's clinic. Why? Because it's a special thing. That if you want to succeed, you have to do something distinct. A distinct service, to be studied, to be well versed, to understand, to do the best thing. Unfortunately, we have what? It's like, oh, just, pass it along, or just finish it quickly, or don't do it well. We don't have this element of excellency in what we do. But those who wish to succeed must be competent, have to be a distinct service, a distinct servant, a distinct priest, a distinct in my job, in my business, in anything, to be distinct, that I offer a distinct service. One of our children was in a hospital, and after he treated the patient, not knowing that this patient was a very wealthy person, so the wealthy person donated $100,000 to the hospital. He says, I want you to build something dedicated to the name, dedicated to that doctor in that hospital, whatever it was, an OR or a reception area, whatever it was, in the name of that doctor. He said, why? He says, because this is a distinguished priest who worked from his heart. He wasn't just doing his job mechanically. So that's his personality, that doctor. And truly very distinct, and God has blessed him very much in his life. Why? Because he is doing his work with such high efficiency in what he does. The last thing we call confidence, to be self-confident, and self-confidence comes from that God is with me and God carries me, and God will not leave me. And that's why everything that we just talked about, if you notice, you'll find that it is. Why do we say that this is a blessing from God? Because God is in my life. Let's review this. We said that Christ is in my life. He will give me the qualities that will make me accepted and loved by people. He will grant me to think outside of the box, to believe in something and to place it in my heart and to love it and to have a zeal for it. Will give me that I will love people and to have a great sense of communication with people. Will give me that I will, that among the commandments of God, to be faithful in our work. So to give me to continue and to persevere and to carry on. It will give me to think in perfection, to do things with such high efficiency, and give me a sense of confidence through which his work within me. Aren't these
هي
qualities,
قلنا معايير النجاح.
aren't these
فيبقى
the
إذن
indications
اللي
of
عايش مع
success?
ربنا
So
عنده
even
كل الصفات
therefore,
دي.
those who live with God have all of these
كأنك
indicators
حكاية
are a
بتشتغل
successful
ازاي.
person, because how it
ما هو
works.
بركات ربنا ديت
Because the
مش
blessings
مثلا
of God
ايه
are not,
حاجة
for
انا ما
example,
استاهلهاش.
something
حياتي
that I
مع
simply
ربنا
don't deserve. My life
بعمقها
with God in its
هنبقى
depth and its
هتنتج
faithfulness
عنها
will
البركات دي.
produce
لكن انا لو قصرت
these
في حاجة من الحاجات
blessings.
دي
But
وبعدت
if
عن
I
ربنا
fall
وناس ما
short in
بتشوفنيش
one of these
بصورة كده
things,
خلاص
and
فقدت البركة دي ليه؟
people no longer see Christ or the image, the rendering of Christ in my life, then I lost this blessing. So
المعايير
what's
دي
the point?
طالما
Because all of these indicators or all of these
اللي هو ماشي مع
gauges
ربنا
got confused and mixed up. Those who walk with God will definitely be a successful person, because they have all of these indicators
النجاح
to
الحقيقي.
gauge with, through which you gauge true success.
فاضل لنا 5 دقايق.
We have 5 minutes to go.
ما خدتش بالي الوقت جري.
I didn't,
بس لو في
I
أسئلة
lost track of time.
معلش مش هناخد بريك بقى عشان خاطر
But if there are questions, I'm sorry, we'll skip the break,
نجاوب
because
كام سؤال اللي وصلوا.
I'll just answer the few handful of questions I got right now.
واحد بيقول ليس
Someone
بس
is
على
asking
موضوع لوط وابراهيم ليس
the
بس
matter of
على
Abraham
موضوع
and Lot.
المشاكل ولكن كل
The
تجربة
fellowship
وقصة
is
لوط
not the
على
problem
الموضوع
of
بيكون أكبر.
it's the cause of problems, but the lack of love.
الشركة
Believe
هي
me, partnership or fellowship
بتنتج عنها الشيطان بيستخدمها
produces a devil
علشان
that's
يزعل الناس.
employed to
أقرب
make people
الإخوات
angry at each
شفتها
other, and the closest of
شفتها
siblings.
من والدي شفتها
And I've seen
عمليا
this
في
not just from
حياتي.
my father, I've seen it practically in my
في
life.
حياتي شفتها.
So I've seen it practically in my life.
من الخبرة
So this is
العملية
out of practical
أي حاجة
experience,
بيكون فيها تعامل مالي
that anything that has financial
الشيطان
dealings in
يستخدمها
it,
على طول.
that the devil uses right away.
نصيحة
So
ننصح
this is a piece of advice
يعني بلاش الموضوع ده. نصيحة
to
بصفة
avoid
عامة.
this, just in general.
هو طبعا التعليق اللي بعتينه بيقول ما احنا
Of course, the
الزواج
comment
بنقول
that
عليه
they
شريك
sent,
الحياة.
we call a
ده
life
برضه
partner.
حتى في شركة الزواج
Even in the
يهاب
partnership
بسبب المال.
that is of marriage, you could have
الراجل
money
يطلع
related
يشتغل.
conflict. That the man will go out to
يقول
work
الست اقعدي في البيت ما تشتغلي.
and tell the wife, sit home
نفسها
and don't
تساعد
work,
أهلها.
and she wants to help her family, for
هو
example.
ممكن يساعد أهله.
He
مش
could
مشكلة.
help his family, not a
هي تحاول
problem.
تساعد أهلها.
But for her to try to help her family,
طب
no,
ليه لا؟
you can't. Why?
ما أنت بتساعد أهلك.
Because
هي كده.
you help your family. Well,
حاجات
that's
تاني.
how it is. That's how it
هو اللي
is.
بيعمل فلوس وهو اللي
And
يتحكم.
he makes the money, so he
هنا
controls.
تبدأ إيه؟
And here
شركة.
begins conflict.
اسمهم شركاء في الحياة.
And they're called life partners.
أنا لا أنصح.
Allegedly.
لكن أنا لا أنصح.
It's up to you, but I do not
لكن لما
recommend.
بيكون في حب
But when there is love
وفي تواضع
and there's humility,
طبعا بتمشي. لكن
of course
عمليا
things go well. But practically,
المواضيع ديت
these matters cause
بتسبب مشاكل كتير.
these cause a lot of problems.
هل يا ترى العيد 7 يناير بالجمعة ولا
Is
السبت 8
the feast of Christmas on January 7th, a Friday, or
وناكلوا فطار يوميها
the 8th, which is Saturday? It'll be Friday, and we'll eat non-fasting food on Friday, and everything will be fine.
هتصوموا بقى اللي قبلها يبقى يوم برامون.
But you'll have one day of Baramon fasting before it, which is Thursday.
أفتكر دي كل
I believe that these are all the questions that I got.
كل سنة وانتم طيبين.
Happy feast.
داخلين على فترة الكريسماس.
We're entering the Christmas season and these days.
يعني معاكم برضو إن شاء الله الخميس
We'll still
الجاي
be with you next Thursday,
وبنعمة المسيح.
and through the grace of Christ.
خلينا
I think there'll be another Thursday before the end of the year. Happy feast. See you well. May God keep you. And glory be to God forever. Amen. Stand up for prayer. Make us worthy to say, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Kingdom come on earth as in heaven. Give us daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Christ Jesus our Lord, for that kingdom, power, and
محبة الله الآب ونعمة الابن الوحيد الجنس ربنا ولكم كل سنة وعلى المسيح نشارك في عطية الروح القدس تكون معكم